And yet, you almost have a situation where they appear to want to tell us that they want to have their cake and eat it. You are either sacrificing for a cause you believe in, and you go in all out and you accept the consequences, or you don't. Mm-hmm. You can't have both.
Yes.
Then yesterday, this very curious application from the minority on the floor to the speaker, that when they boycott Parliament and go to solidarize where their colleagues are being prosecuted, they should be marked as present or marked as absent with permission.
How did they get the permission?
Absent with permission. Mm-hmm. And the speaker obviously ruled at the end that no, you'll be marked as absent without permission. And that permission or no permission is very critical, because it is the determinant of whether or not you vacate your seat after 15 sittings of absence. And in this case, the minority guys have actually realized on the back of the High Court ruling the day before, mm-hmm, that if once the High Court has upheld the daily hearings, then if we are really going to follow strictly our own decision to solidarize, they will now have to be going to court every single day for the entire duration of the trial, which actually means that they will be out of Parliament for this particular sitting, for this particular meeting, for definitely more than 15 days. Mm-hmm. I believe that is what triggered this application on the floor today, hoping that the Speaker would concede. So I spoke to the minority leader on PM Express and asked the question, okay, so do you really want to sacrifice and show solidarity, or you don't want? He said, well, let's say it's a parliamentary procedure, and what they will do now is every day they will get the chief whip, their minority chief whip, to write a letter to the Speaker that they're going to be absent that day. And I made a point to him. The Constitution says the Speaker must give you the permission in writing.
Yes.
If it's not in writing, you cannot make a legal claim to it. So if you write that morning, you have to wait for the Speaker to respond and hand it back to you in writing. This is how they'll cross that particular threshold.
No, but why they make... See, this is a very simple matter. If you want, show up in Parliament. Okay? Or show up in Parliament. When the Speaker comes, and they do, Mr. Speaker, as soon as he enters, says the prayer, you walk out.
But that will be dependent on the time of the case in court, because you have to be there before the court case starts.
So you see, what is it that you want to do?
They've made a decision, right? But they've chosen the solidarity over parliamentary business.
Yes, but let me make the point.
So you cannot go to Parliament and before you go.
Wait.
And solidarize.
Wait. In fact, the first day they boycotted Parliament, they were in Parliament and said, we're not going to be part of this. Okay? Right? They were in Parliament and said, we're not going to be part of this. My point is this. If you still want to be counted as present in Parliament, then wait for the Speaker to come and you go.
But otherwise, if the Speaker comes at 10, the case would have started.
Yes.
And you possibly get into court at 12. There's no point.
Wait. Your lawyers can actually make a case for you. I mean, Judge Christen's lawyers can actually make a case that, how about the case starting at 11?
No, the court will not.
Every day. They will do that.
We'll not hold the time and wait for MP. But the court's preference that they don't come there in their numbers at all.
No, I am giving you, all the scenarios. But really, Evans Mensah, can Ghana organize by-election in 137 constituencies? Can we?
Well, it's a constitution.
Can we?
But that's not the question.
Look, we cannot.
No, but that's not the question.
By the time,
whether you are violating the Constitution or not. The law is the law.
Even if they are cited for violating the Constitution. Okay, yes, we'll get to that legal aspect. We'll debate that. But if they are cited, okay, for violating the Constitution, by the time the committee sits and finishes its work, my guy, we'll be ready for the next election. And they're part of the committee, mind you. You need 2/3 to get somebody to lose their seat. Well, that's a subject of a debate, whether it's 2/3. Someone actually made a point that once the Privileges Committee sits and says this person should lose their seat, that's the end of it. Others say no. Bring it to the floor of Parliament, let Parliament vote. They are part of the 2/3. Are they going to vote that they lose their seats?
So you think it's not realistic?
So there's something, look.
So then they shouldn't be worried about whether or not
but
why are they worried?
No, but the other point, where I have an issue, we have an issue, is that we're going to have a supplementary, we're going to have a budget review.
Next week, I think.
Next week or so. Okay, so I'm sure before 27th, we've been told, so maybe they come before 25th or whatever. So let's say next 2 weeks, Tuesday. What I do not know is whether the finance minister would go with a supplementary budget or go with new revenue measures.
Oh, he has to.
If he goes with new revenue measures, and the Speaker, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbing, even if he's not there, the first Deputy Speaker, second Deputy Speaker, when they sit in and they have 138 people, it will take a decision. Mm-hmm. When they take that decision, will the minority then come back and complain?
That is, if that day coincides with the court hearing.
But that is when they will take the decision. If the government knows that you're going to go and show
but if that's
they will take a decision.
But if that's the case, whether they are there or not, it will make a difference.
Whether they are there or not, it won't make. But at least.
So you better choose not to be there.
But at least, in the matter of e-levy, when government sought to remove the no charge on 100 Ghana cedis daily, the minority kicked against that, and the government maintained it. So let us not say.
But that's the circumstances were slightly different.
Yeah, but let us see.
Adjoa Safo was in play.
Anything can happen.
Adjoa Safo has been taken out of the play at least when it comes to the.
Anything can happen. Okay? Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Okay? So, today, I would prefer that the minority is in Parliament. The minority can say we are boycotting the, mid-year review to make a point. I think they've made enough points. If they're really concerned about what we're going through, and if what they said the last time to saving Ghana's democracy is something they still stand by, I say, okay, you boycott the mid-year review. Come back to Parliament. Come and debate some of the things. In the committee, come and debate. Okay? Because sometimes, this is the point, sometimes when you are there, you can actually make a case. Because the finance minister would not like sometimes all the whole debate because he probably may be in a hurry. If you're debating him and saying, we don't want this, we don't want that, they probably may reach a compromise and say, oh, okay, how I will take this. So you can choose to do that. But if they really want to still show solidarity with their brother, they could go ahead and do so. I'm not sure. I mean, people would also look at it and say, Parliament. Yes, that's another point of it. Then we can have the
this question,
morality debate.
This question we've asked of them since they declared this. That this clearly for me is a choice between representation of your people and solidarity with your member of parliament, with your colleague member of parliament. They've clearly have made a choice to solidarize with their member of parliament over representation of their people. Anytime I've asked this question, I see the discomfort because it is very clear. And I've also now I'm noticing that the majority side have begun to now use it on the floor of Parliament against them.
Yeah.
So twice now, there have been questions, urgent questions that have been filed by NDC minority members of a number of ministers. Questions they've asked on behalf of their people in their constituencies. Ministers have showed up on the floor to answer those questions, but the minority members who asked the question are not there themselves. They've gone to solidarize. That is a pretty bad look. A very bad look. You've asked the question, it is urgent because you want the answer urgently on behalf of the people that you represent. And yet, because of a decision that you've taken to solidarize with one individual who you believe is being persecuted, you're not there to answer the question. And the majority guys have said, last week the Deputy Majority Whip was clear to me on Top Story that as far as scheduling of the business of Parliament for the week and for the next 2 weeks, there's no way they're going to bring those questions back. Because the ministers came and you were not there. You forfeit asking those questions and getting an answer. So you sit in the constituency, for example, as a citizen, and then you hear that your member of Parliament has asked a question on your behalf. Obviously, a question that is asked because he believes it's important to the people, and yet is not available on the floor on the day the question was tabled to be heard, but is in court solidarizing. That is a very difficult political slope to walk, and I'm seeing that, this may not be sustainable in the long run. Yesterday, the minority leader said they have other strategies that they will be rolling. He will not disclose it, but they have other strategies that they intend to roll out. And I believe they need to reconsider this. It is a very powerful tool they've deployed, but it is a tool that can be exploited and spinned against them because it's pitching them against their constituents in choosing one individual's interest and solidarity over the thousands of people in the constituency. And there's only one winner here if it comes down to it.
Well, I mean, they can always make the case that, and I remember having this conversation on Upfront, and Dr. Rashid Rahman saying it was unsustainable. He had Roxanne say that, no, majority of Ghanaians, in fact, when they go around, Ghanaians say you are only hope. That's his point. Roxanne Dapia says, Ghanaians say you are only hope. So Ghanaians are actually urging them on to continue what they're doing. But let me just give you the other point, what I think may happen. Look, this is something that, for a lot of them in their constituencies, they could always go back and fight it. Yes, you're very right. In here would have the conversation and say, these people did not, represent you well enough because at the end of the day, they were doing this. They may also make the case that in representing you, we felt government was persecuting a Ghanaian for no wrong, and so this is a show of solidarity. But let me tell you the other point. Look, I can tell you, there may be members of parliament on the NDC side who are not in favor of this.
Of course, but you can't say.
Yes, you can't say. And for me, that's where the problem is. In conversations with some of the MPs, they don't tell you that they are not in favor of this. What they tell you is that we are representing the party, and you're well aware of, we're contesting primaries on the ticket of a party. All of a sudden today, our democracy and parliament, which we say is the most powerful institution, which has been sleeping, if care is not taken, would sleep further. Because political parties today are finding ways to control the members of parliament. You saw it when the NDC said they were going to save our democracy. You saw the General Secretary showing people who didn't let the cost down. You saw it.
Yeah.
You saw it.
Yeah.
And they said, in this case, you are guilty until you show evidence, true of us.
Yeah.
Now, that's where the problem is. All of a sudden today, because of that ruling by Professor Michael Kwe, that when the NPP dismissed the Formina MP, then Professor Michael Kwe said, well, he has to lose his seat. Today, political parties have taken advantage of that and are controlling members of parliament.
But that's the constitution. The constitution says you went to parliament on the ticket of the party. It's one of the grounds for removal as an MP is if your party expels.
If you leave your party on which you went, if you leave your party, okay, if you leave your party,
but that's subject to interpretation.
That's subject to interpretation. My understanding is that if you leave your party, and the Constitution was trying to prevent happenings of the First Republic and others, where people came
and then cross carpet,
and they still maintain their seats as members of parliament. Okay, I do not think that the Constitution wanted a situation where if you have a problem with your party sacks you and then you lose your seat in parliament. No. I'll be surprised. In fact, I think somebody should actually test this in court. That I am in parliament. Then my party says, I have a problem with you, so they sack me. Then all of a sudden, if my party doesn't want me, watch this. My people elected me to be in parliament. Then my party sacks me. Yes, if I vacate, if I say I'm leaving my party, that's another issue. But over here, what happens is that you're giving the parties undue power. Look at what is happening right now. I see this as problematic. That today, political parties can, and they are controlling the MPs. The MPP also wrote to the MPs they should not take part in a vote of censure, in a censure motion. Yeah. They did not take part. Meanwhile, the NPP members of parliament have started Ken must go because their party said don't do this. So this is where, for me, the problem is really that today the parties are controlling them. As for the minority, if you want to stay in parliament, stay. But for how long can you continue?
You think it's not realistic? It's not sustainable?
I think at a point they must reach a they must sit down with the minority.
No,
with the majority.
Well, yesterday,
I think they must
Dr. Atufo saying, I asked him, so has anybody from the majority side reached out to you to a conversation? He says nobody has reached out to them. But if they reach out to them to talk, they will sit and talk. But one thing he was unequivocal about is that they are not going to stop this mass boycott. Any day that Chukwueze is in court. And by the way, you shouldn't forget that this solidarity is not only with Chukwueze.
Is he himself?
With himself and Collins Dowda.
Yeah.
So in effect, and I kept on making the point, in effect, if you really strictly want to comply, for the rest of this meeting, you cannot be in the House to do work. You can't. Because starting next week, this High Court ruling, which was upheld again the last time, of course, they had an appeals court trying to fight it, that will take time, will kick in. So Jati Kwesi will be in court on a daily basis. And then you throw in there the days on which he himself, the minority leader, will have to go. And then the days when Collins will have to go. In effect, we're going to have a one-sided parliament for the rest of this meeting. And even beyond, right? Now, it is impossible also that the MPP side, the majority side, can also, each time they need their 138, which includes the independent MP, can also bring all of them for big decisions. Because ministers will travel. You know what happens? People may be ill.
Of course.
Others, for whatever reason, it's just a reality of the way Parliament works. So, in effect, parliamentary business will be crippled. The question I really need to ask, or we need to ask, who suffers more as a result of this? Remember, the primary reason why the minority is doing this is to protest against what they believe to be government's persecution of their own, right? So they want to punish government. And I say government, they want to punish the incumbent New Patriotic Party government, by extension, the president. They want to punish the president by doing this. It's a protest. So we won't do business. We won't do your business. We'll leave the house, so your business will suffer. But the question is, yes, you do that, but who really suffers in
I'm telling you that, look, when government wanted to pass e-levy, okay, when they wanted to pass e-levy, they got everybody in.
And had it passed.
If government wants to do anything, they'll get everybody in. Unless somebody is sick. Even those who were sick and were suffering from stroke.
They put them in ambulances.
Put them in ambulances and brought them there. My simple point is that, look, solidarize with your colleague. But it gets to a point also that you must solidarize with us. Because when we had a hang parliament, we said, this is what Ghana's democracy has been waiting for. Of course, we've all been disappointed. A lot of us have been disappointed because, you know, the hang parliament has not really worked as much as you would want it to work. And I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I've been here and said that, look, when the minority said we're going to save Ghana's democracy, I said that wasn't going to work. But there are instances that we have commended the minority. And I've said they have actually stood firm. They've stood their grounds and they've worked for us. Okay? When they got to e-levy, they stood firm, worked for us. Okay? I mean, their decision first and foremost to oppose it, delayed its implementation. Government tried, okay? I mean, reducing it to 1.5. It came with, things that do not attract, for instance, the 100 Ghana cedis and everything, just to soften the grounds for all of this to be passed. You must say the minority did a good job on all of this. But for me, if they want to continue like this, the governing party would take decisions without them. They will come back and complain and would ask the simple question, why were you not there?
So let's review also what they want. So I guess what they want is, one, James Jati Kwesi, stop the trial. Ato Forcing, stop the trial. Collins Dowda, stop the trial. 3 trials. And they call each of them persecution or prosecution. Is it realistic for the state to stop all 3? I doubt very much. When I say realistic, as in, is it realistic to expect that the government will drop all 3 cases? I doubt they will. I mean, knowing the government that we have, they decide to do something, they will go for it. On the Jati Kwesi matter, is where I guess they may have a case. They may. I listened to an argument put forth by Professor Kwekwasari. That was very convincing. And it was not an argument based on emotion. It was an argument based on law, right? I don't know if you've listened to him. I
have. I've listened to that argument.
I don't know if he convinces you too.
He sounds very convincing.
It sounds very convincing. His argument, if you haven't listened, check it on my Joe Online. It's at my Joe Online and the Joe News channels. He was on PM Express. He makes the argument that the James Achukwueze case started with the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court was invited to interpret the Constitution. Fundamentally, the issue of allegiance.
Yeah.
Right? And that on the form that the MPs, prospective MPs, will fill when they are filing with the EC, and the constitutional injunction that says you cannot be a member of parliament if you hold a dual citizenship. That is, if you have allegiance to any other country other than Ghana, you can't be a member of parliament. So that's why on the EC form, you are asked the question, do you owe allegiance to any other country other than Ghana? If you answer yes, you are disqualified.
Yeah.
If you answer no, you go through. He answered no and went through, right? So the state is now prosecuting for perjury. With the understanding that you knew, at the time you're answering yes, no, I didn't have any other allegiance, I didn't have allegiance to any other country other than Ghana. You knew that statement was false and yet said no. Okay. However, backtrack a bit. The Supreme Court was invited to interpret the meaning of allegiance. Kweku Asamoah's point, the Supreme Court now has decided that matter. That allegiance and citizenship are the same.
Yeah.
Right? That you cannot separate the two. So as at the time that he was filling the form, this is Kweku Asamoah's point, as at the time that he was filling that form, the mere fact that this matter has to go to the Supreme Court is implied there that question and the answer to that question was vague.
Exactly. It wasn't a straightforward.
It wasn't a straightforward one. It was vague. It was only now that the Supreme Court had clarified it that you have clarity. So anybody who fills that form going forward should have no doubt what that question means of allegiance. So his argument is, if that is the case, then you cannot accuse me of perjuring myself on a question whose answer is vague.
Yeah.
Right? That's the point. And that if that's the case, because post the Supreme Court case, you shouldn't prosecute him.
So now we have clarity. At the time, we didn't have clarity. Okay. And so, yes. And
that clarity came post the answering of that question. So he says that on the basis of that, the state should withdraw the case, the criminal case from court, because it is bound to fail. Right? All his lawyers have to go and do in court, you say, by the time that the man was filling this form, this question, the answer to it was absolutely ambiguous. The Supreme Court felt the need. And if you read the Supreme Court judgment, they start by arguing why it was legitimate for that case to come before them. They agree it's vague, and so they're going to proceed to interpret.
So you see, yes.
I listened to that, I'm like, well, that is the strongest argument yet. Before that, everybody was talking about emotions or political witch hunting, and on the legal strength of that argument, I think maybe he has a case there.
You see,
but then my counter to that to him was, okay, but that's what you believe. Allow the court of competence jurisdiction to evaluate this argument.
Of course, that's something the court is
exactly,
going to do. But you see, yes, I also do believe, for instance, that even politically, something may give when it comes to the Achukwueze case, politically. Along the line, some way, somehow, well, they're appealing. We don't know whether the appeals court would say, for instance, that this is a man who has something to do in Parliament. So why do you want to bring him every day? He's been elected as a member of Parliament. You cleared him to contest the elections. He's contested the elections. Okay, if you want to try him in such a way that he could go back and serve his people. How about you wait when Parliament is on recess, then you do that. Even then, how about you do it once a month or once a week so that he's not taking away from his people. Let's just wait for the appeals court. We don't know what the appeals court is going to decide. So that's something that the appeals court will decide. I foresee a situation where along the line, some way, somehow, what may happen is that the case may drag a little bit. And you probably could see a situation where all parties would allow the case to drag. And when all parties allow the case to drag, it is because I don't want to stop so that it looks like, well, my going to court initially wasn't sensible after all.
I think it's now impossible to allow the case to drag.
Well, when I say, you see, when I say...
In fact, you're suggesting that maybe because the state cannot go and file a nolle prosequi.
Oh, they can.
They can, but there's a political implication there. Because once you do that, many would then say, oh, you only started this because you wanted to affect his chances of winning the by-election, right? So the best alternative really don't want to touch this case anymore. Is to just slow down, pretend, or just let the case, drag on. Except that now that the High Court has upheld that daily hearing, you can't go back to.
Oh, the appeals courts would just wait for.
Yeah, but I know appeals court will take time.
Yes, it will take time. Let's wait.
Yeah, I agree with you. You have to wait for that.
But now they've gone.
By the interim,
but now they've gone to the Supreme Court too.
I agree. By the interim, the case will go on a daily basis.
Let's see what the lawyers may do. A lot of things may happen around.
And because it's happening on a daily basis.
I mean, a lot of things may happen.
Except that you have Tachu Chikata, who is your lawyer. He knows he's the master at filing all these processes.
I was having a conversation with some lawyers the last time, and they were showing me, for instance, how to delay a case. And you'd be surprised.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of things could happen.
Tachu Chikata is a master.
Yes, a lot of things would happen. So,
nobody does that better.
And so a lot of things would happen. So, I see a situation where, a few things could drag. If it happens that way, then you probably would say, okay, let's hold on, let's do that. But the reality is that for me, the most important thing is that the minority. The last time I spoke with Habib Idrisu on Upfront, he was indicating that they were going to reach out to the minority.
They haven't done that.
They haven't done that still.
But I think they should.
They should.
I think
the Atuforsen case, would you say that's persecution? Would you say same for Collins Dowda? Look, let me say this. The minority today, their strongest case, where Ghanaians can agree with them, is Jachi Kwesing. That's food for thought for them.
Yeah, and that's indeed food for thought. And because you still have and just to add to that, because you still have that case that most likely will convince Ghanaians, as it did in Asin North, you can use that case and amplify that to apply to the trial of Ato and case. Although those trials had been persisting before this, you put all three together with the strength of the Jachi Kwesing case, which the citizens have bought into already, people can't distinguish them anymore.
Yeah.
And we'll see all three individuals as being persecuted. That's the risk of going into an election with this case. And we're making the point about, apart from the legal argument, there's a political case there for the MPP to reconsider. Do we still want to make martyrs, in quotes, of these individuals, so that people will now see them as being persecuted indeed, when indeed is the court? Can people make that clear distinction between I'm following the law, rule of law? The masses out there who will be voting can't make that distinction. For them, the guy won the election.
And you're still trying.
to.
So, along the line, I'm sure the government will take a political decision.
Yeah, let's see. Anyway, let's read a few of your messages before you. Bob Etonam, you can't force us. Yentiobia Kujo Fiti says, what will the MPs be doing? Are they there only to rubber stamp bad decisions by their government? Unfortunately, that's all you have to do. What bad or good, they'll whip them in line. Kujo Fiti says again, what's a reasonable question do MPs ask of their government? Salatil says, if government wants to do its business, they should get their 137+1 to work. Leave the minority alone. Well taken. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.